You know, I can pick it apart and remember every single thing and who was grouchy which day and whichever, but then I get really, really sucked up in it. It's really fun. Is that okay?
Now, you're a huge admirer of Stephen Sondheim. Are there places Are there places where you're consciously knocking off Sondheim?
No, not like I knocked off Penny. It's okay. It's totally fine. I'd like to say no, but then there's that horrible song "Slipping," which was originally titled "Rebuttal," which to me was hilarious, by the way. It was a play on Epiphany, which is because Epiphany is so meaningful and Rebuttal is so mundane. Jen explained to me that I should probably just call it "Slipping." So it sings over and over, and everybody else was going to call it that. So, and that's very much in the sort of discordance of the beginning and how he feels about people, and then especially the second part where he's basically saying, "Go ahead, anyone for a shave?" It's like, okay. Just change certain things like that. I mean, I'm not actually, I can't play or be a genius enough to actually imitate him, but I'm definitely taking some cues, particularly.
For a second, I was like,
what's the kind of thing that you can do in a song that you can't do in any other kind of writing? And what kind of stupid shit can you get away with in a song that you couldn't get away in any other kind of writing?
Well, I can't imagine ever getting away with the deltoids of compassion. Maybe my favorite thing I've ever written. You know, you can just. I'm not. Some people may have noticed this. The most subtle guy, and songwriting means that's out the window. You can be clever, and you can be, you can be working against what you're saying, like Everything You Ever, where he's like, now it's all going my way, until the last line, you never. But basically, it's hard on sleeve. It's absolutely out there. You're going for the broadest joke, the biggest cry, the biggest laugh, whatever it is. You're completely invested in it. You're invested in it in a way that only music can do. And when you hear, for example, cursing, the funniest things I've ever seen in my life would be, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. The first time I saw Tenacious D. There was the most cursing, and just because it rhymed and it was pretty, and they really cared about the music and the style of the music. Every time they cursed, it was like 10 times funnier. It isn't that way outside of it. It becomes sort of repetitive. If anybody's seen my Alien movie, they know that. And so, it's just everything is heightened because the music, everything works just a little bit better if it fits together like that.
There's a move that you make in this, and that you also made in the Dr. Horrible appearance on the Emmys, which you directed, right? Last night. So, when he reads the letter from the horse or gets the phone call, the guys come in from the side. Where does that come from?
Honestly, I'm trying to think of an example of that somewhere else. Never saw it. Sorry. Never saw it. Sorry for the stage.
Off-Broadway!
It's just not the same theater. But, so I can still see it. Actually, the person who told me I had to see it was Neil, who was at Ali Hagen's wedding. The soundtrack. Oh, you guys have to listen to this. It's amazing. But I still didn't. But no, I just. Where I think it comes from is cartoons. I think it's, there's always the and it just, it seems like a natural thing to do in my world.
Moist, is he the sort of character who, if he had to exist for 3 more scenes, like there's nothing else for him to do? Does he exhaust everything? Like, where does Moist, where did he come from? Also, if you had to, could you do a whole story just about Moist? Or is he so limited in his scope of ability?
I think, first of all, you're underestimating the power of damp. I think he can wreak all kinds of havoc. Where he comes from is very specifically the mind of Ben Edlund. Ben Edlund, the creator of The Tick, and a writer on both Angel and Firefly, was supposed to be on the show with us and had to drop out, but not before he had pitched the idea of Moist as being the best friend of Dr. Horrible, which we thought was a great villain. And it's very much, if you know Ben. And he had also pitched Bad Horse not for Dr. Horrible. It was his favorite pitch on Angel. Because there's never a bad horse. He would always say, but how did we make a radioactive device using only hooves? And so when Ben was going to be part of it, I said, we've got to get Bad Horse in there. It's just too good. I loved it too much. Now, not going to be on Angel, clearly. Although, ironically, it was because the horse that we used was actually in an episode of Angel and an episode of Dollhouse. We've used this horse 3 times.
Wait, you thought that, like, let's do an Angel where they all turn into Muppets. That's less far out than he fights a horse.
You know, here's the thing about fantasy, is the rules may seem completely arbitrary, but they are very, very firm. People know when you're not following them. It's hard to explain. The thing about Bad Horse is you can't actually do that much with him. You can only talk about him. Which works perfectly for something like this, where the money is not so much. But for Angel, which did have its own kind of integrity. I'm serious. There's stuff you can get away with and stuff that people are just like, well, you know. And I'm very strict about it. I'm like, well, of course he could grow a head out of his armpit. What do you mean he has a little brother? He would never have a little brother. They come from you to an extent, and yet I always feel like there's a reason for it.
Well, what's another example? Are there other ones that come to mind of things that you just like, no, that
well, really just character stuff, and particularly with Buffy. Buffy was the hardest to break because it was everyday life. Angel, we could go to Pylea in a way that we couldn't in Buffy. With Buffy, we were very strict about just making sure we couldn't do an evil twin until we actually had something to say about your life that could involve a twin. And we had a twin. We had an actual twin. Nicholas Brennan's brother, Kelly Schultz, who is actually evil. It wasn't until we actually had a reason, a genuine emotional reason, to tell a story with a twin.